So for this session, the next aspect of Hal's career we're looking at is advisor and advocate. Hal's been involved with an enormous number of different organizations. And unfortunately, we don't have time to speak about all of them unless we had an extra day. But the ones that we're talking about this afternoon are largely unpaid capacities as advisor and advocate. And there are 4 speakers. Professor Luca Csepely-Knorr, I think I've got the pronunciation correctly, who's research chair in architecture at the University of Liverpool School of Architecture, is going to kick us off. So Luca, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's me. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me, Annabelle. As Tim said, I got the research chair in architecture at the university position, but it's a bit misleading. I am a landscape architect and an arts historian, and have spent my career researching how ideas travel across countries, regions, continents, from east to west and back. And I am particularly interested how values travel between generations. If you think about questions such as the social value of landscape, or how landscape is important in creating an equitable society, or the importance of ecology, or a holistic thinking about our relationship with our wider ecosystems, and how these ideas were started to be advocated by a few professionals, and we hope that they are now universally acknowledged. So when Annabelle asked me to talk at this event, I could not stop myself thinking from going back to the archive and find a guiding topic there. And at the time, I was going through Brenda Colvin's archive and found a quote by Hal that talked about her inspiring kindness to younger professionals, which I felt and struck me was the perfect line to start with this lecture with, or this short talk. And I'd like to show you today how I believe Hal has perfectly pursued this himself. I've known Hal for a long time through my husband and their joint work at the ICOMOS IFLA Cultural Landscape Committee. But I started to, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, collaborate with him through some projects that I started at the Manchester School of Architecture, where I was teaching at the time. The first one was a project that celebrated the landscapes of post-war infrastructure in 2017. And it started with a teaching project where I took a number of architecture students to the Museum of English Rural Life's archive to study the histories of 4 power stations that you can see on the map and on the slide. And as someone who I knew had first-hand experience in designing power station landscapes, I asked Hal if he would like to come and talk to my students as part of a small oral history project that I tried to teach them as a methodology. He agreed, and my architecture students had a wonderful afternoon talking about scale, landscape, ecology, while looking at Eggborough Power Station's landscape in the archive. And after that, they couldn't stop talking about how much they enjoyed when Hal actually recognized his own drawing in the archive, and how much they learned about collaboration, and how histories of architecture and landscape need to be told with more interest in and sensitivity towards all the people who contributed to a project, not just a lead designer. The students' projects, including this interactive model of Ditko Power Station, went on an exhibition in Manchester. And you can see here Hal's attempt to rearrange the cooling towers, testing out whether Frederick Gibbard was right or not. The exhibition itself accompanied a conference where Hal agreed to give a keynote lecture as the voice of experience, followed by Ellen Harwood's talk as the voice of the historian. And you can see here the 2 of them showing the drawings of Gale Common, for a lecture theatre full of students and interested historians. And I think the scale of Gale Common drawings was giving a very much digital generation a very good insight into scale and landscape and how big that project was. And we were very lucky to be able to get further funding for this project to do more. And many of you here have collaborated on this project with us, and thanks for all your time and effort with that one. But what we didn't know was the day we launched the project in Reading at the Museum of English Rural Life was the day when the first person in the UK died of COVID-19, just opposite from us in the hospital. So a project that was planned to be a collaboration between students and researchers, artists and landscape architects, heritage professionals and policymakers was now hit by an unforeseen COVID pandemic. But the reality of an online world didn't stop Hal to help us and support us and our students. He lectured about Gale Common, and we recorded a number of conversations with him over Zoom about projects that he took part in, or just questions around landscape architecture in post-war Britain generally. And these conversations and his generous lectures were absolutely crucial in creating an exhibition that, although 2 years delayed, was on show at the National Coal Mining Museum, where the students' work was part of a major exhibition around power and coal. And you can see here the students' model of Gale Common and the landscape of Gale Common as it evolved. And you can see up there Hal lecturing about Gale Common on Zoom. And while I think it was a really hard time for many of us, we had the most inspirational time because of this inspiring kindness of our collaborators. In 2022, I embarked on another project, the Women of the Welfare Landscape, that aimed to celebrate the number of wonderful women who shaped the post-war landscapes of Britain and beyond. And it started particularly in 2022, as it's so the 100 years celebration of Colvin and Moggridge. And when I was developing the application to the Arts and Humanities Research Council for this project, I turned to Hal, my trusted mentor, to seek his advice, what he thinks would be the best way to showcase the project. It was his idea to create a traveling exhibition that could bring back the projects to the communities that Colvin and Moggridge designed for. He spent a number of hours with me in the archive, choosing the right images and the right plans that can go on the boards to show the variety and the breadth of the landscapes that landscape architects work on. The exhibition toured across England and Scotland, starting from East Kilbride to go down to Oxfordshire, and more than 10 places in between. It was shown in public libraries, National Trust properties, galleries, and also universities where the next generation of landscape architects are being taught. We hope that it's achieved what it wanted to bring these landscapes back to local communities. Hal was kind enough to support us and write the introduction to our catalogue, and he was there when he launched the exhibition at the National Trust Schools Hill and Busker estates. But beyond sharing all his knowledge and his experience, he was also willing to take part in a 3-screen film installation that we created in collaboration with a number of filmmakers and local communities across Yorkshire. The film is an artwork about landscape and power, the disappearance of our coal infrastructures, and trying to capture what it meant for the communities who were living around these coal infrastructures and around these landscapes. It is about the life, death, and afterlife of power landscape. And while I do not have time to show this film to you, I'd like to show you just 30 seconds from it, which is for me the most important part and most important message of this film.
And I think that's probably very important for the older generation, not to just make everyone depressed. I mean, we were so lucky because we were all very optimistic. We were taught optimistically, and we were living optimistically. I think there's a danger of everyone being pessimistic, but that's not a sensible thing at all. That's not a way to achieve anything. So I think there's a need to realize that you can make things, do things well.
I believe that for myself and my colleagues, this is the message of optimism that we try to highlight when we work with newer and newer generations. It is this hopeful message and belief in the role of good landscapes and good designs that I believe is key to carry on well beyond our roles of academics and designers. These are photos of us and my colleagues working in very different environments, playing power station board games in a high school in Manchester that was developed by architecture students who heard Hal talking about the importance of landscape and power. Or on the other images, it's me and my colleagues in action while we were talking about the landscape of style and East Kilbride, both designed by Brenda Colvin, to primary school children, teaching them that it is possible to change the fate of our planet with good landscapes, and it is possible for them all to become landscape architects. They actually tried themselves and their skills in redesigning what they thought Brenda Colvin didn't get right in their local landscapes, both in drawings and models. And in our feedback sheet, this is my favorite one, which shows that our message of creating inspired landscapes did get through, and they think that's the role of a landscape architect. And just to finish off, I would like to go back to my starting point, the archive. I spent very long hours mapping the networks and collaborators of Brenda Colvin through her visitors book, finding more and more names that sounded exciting and familiar, and examples that we don't necessarily know about. But for a number of reasons, this is one of my favorite pages, showing the personal link between her and Hal's family. A thrilling insight for me as a historian, but also as a parent myself. So to finish off this presentation, I'd like to pair this image of Colvin's visitor book with a painting of my own son, Lenny, who one day came home from school with this watercolor. It depicts a scene from Hal and Cassie's garden, and it was created the day after we spent an afternoon having enormous fun making paper boats and enjoying a boat race there. So thank you, Hal, for carrying on and extending that inspiring kindness to new generations, to younger academics, to students, historians, filmmakers, and even to our own children. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luca. And that note of optimism for the next generation is so critical, perhaps particularly now.